secret architecture of bees, the small creatures holding up our world. When most people hear the word bee, they imagine one thing, a yellow and black striped insect, buzzing around flowers, living inside a honeycomb, producing honey, but that image represents only a tiny fraction of bee diversity. The truth is far more complex and far more fascinating, because bees are not just honey makers, they are architects, navigators, farm workers, communicators, engineers of ecosystems, and in many ways, silent partners in human survival. To understand bees, we must begin with a simple clarification. Not every bee makes honey. Not every bee lives in a hive. Not every bee lives in a colony. In fact, the majority of bee species on Earth are solitary. There are over 20,000 known species of bees worldwide. Only a small percentage belong to the familiar honeybee group. Most bees live alone, no queen, no workers, no honey stores, just a female bee building her own nest, laying her own eggs, provisioning them with pollen, and sealing them away. When we say bee, we are describing a branch of insects within the order Hymenoptera. The order also includes ants and wasps. Bees evolved from wasp-like ancestors millions of years ago. The key evolutionary shift started while predatory wasps hunt insects. Early bees began feeding on pollen and nectar. The dietary transition changed everything, because pollen is protein-rich, nectar is sugar-rich, and together they form a complete nutritional system. By specializing in flowers, bees entered into one of the most important ecological partnerships in Earth's history. The partnership between pollinator and plant. But before we explore that partnership, we need to understand what makes a bee physically distinct. Bees are insects. That means they have a head, a thorax, an abdomen, 6 legs, 2 antennae, usually 2 pairs of wings, but bees also have specialized features. They have brand or body hairs. The hairs trap pollen grains. They have structures called scopi, pollen-carrying brushes on the legs or abdomen. Honeybees and pumper bees have pollen pockets called corpiculi. These are smooth areas surrounded by stiff hairs where pollen is packed into visible golden lumps. Their tongues, or proboscis, are adapted for nectar extraction. Some species have long tongues for deep flowers. Others have short tongues for open plumes. Body shape varies dramatically. Some bees are tiny, barely visible specks. Others are large and fuzzy like bumblebees. Some are metallic green, some are blue, some are entirely black. Many people mistake flies for bees. However, flies mimic bee coloration for protection. But flies have only one pair of wings. Bees have two. Bees also have different eye placement and body structure. At first glance, the distinctions seem minor, but biologically they are critical. Bees are not accidental pollinators, they are specialized pollen collectors, and their specialization makes them extraordinarily efficient. Now let's talk about behavior. Solitary bees make up roughly 90% of bee species. Each female builds her own nest. Nests may be in sorrel burrows, hollow stems, wood cavities, cracks in walls, even abundant petrol holes. She collects pollen, mixes it with nectar to create a nutrient pool, lays an egg on top, seals the chamber, and repeats. There is no parental care after sealing. The larva consumes the pollen mass, develops pupas, emerges the following season. Simple, independent, effective. Then there are social bees. Honeybees, bumblebees, stinglet bees. These species form colonies. Colonies vary in complexity. Honeybees represent one of the most advanced forms of insect social organization. A honeybee colony can contain tens of thousands of individuals. It includes one queen, thousands of female workers, hundreds of male drones during breeding season. Each individual has a role. The queen lays eggs. Workers clean cells, feed larvae, build comb, guard entrances, forage for nectar and pollen, regulate hive temperature. The colony behaves as a single organism. But unlike ants, honeybees communicate with a visible language, the worker dance. When a forager finds a rich nectar source, she returns to the hive. She performs a dance pattern on the comb. The angle of the dance indicates direction relative to the sun. The duration indicates distance. The intensity indicates quality. That is simply communication, a map encoded in movement. Few animals outside humans use spatial symbolic language like this. Bees navigate using sun position, polarized light patterns, landmarks, even magnetic cues. Despite their small brains, they demonstrate remarkable spatial memory. Now consider their evolutionary age. Bees evolved over 100 million years ago. They diversified alongside flowering plants. Flowering plants angiosperms depend heavily on pollinators. As flowers evolved shapes, colors, and scents to attract insects, bees co-evolved traits to exploit them. That co-evolution created intricate dependencies. Some flowers are shaped specifically for certain bee species. Some bees specialize in certain plant families. This specialization increases efficiency, but it also increases vulnerability. If a specialized bee loses its host plant, it declines. If a plant loses its pollinator, it struggles to reproduce. Urbanization disrupts the relationships. When cities replace native plants with ornamental species that provide little nectar or pollen, specialized bees disappear. Then rich bees remain, biodiversity narrows. Understanding bees requires seeing the web of relationships. They are not isolated insects buzzing randomly. They are nodes in ecological networks. Now let's explore sensory perception. Bees see ultraviolet light. Many flowers have ultraviolet patterns invisible to humans. The patterns guide bees toward nectar, like landing lines on a runway. Bees also detect polarized light, allowing navigation even on cloudy days. Their sense of smell is highly developed. They detect floral scents at low concentrations. Inside the hive, pheromones regulate behaviors. The queen emits chemicals that maintain colony cohesion. Alarm pheromones trigger defensive behavior. Communication is chemical, visual, and tactile. Unintegrated. Now consider lifespan. A worker honeybee in summer may live only 6 weeks. Her life is structured in phases. First, cleaning cells, then feeding larvae, then building comb, then guarding, then finally foraging. Each phase corresponds to age and physiological change. The division of labor increases efficiency. In winter, workers live longer. The colony reduces production. Energy is conserved. Seasonality shapes bee life cycles. Solitary bees often synchronize emergence with flowering times. If climate change shapes flowering earlier, but bees do not adjust, mismatch occurs. Timing is critical. Now let's address something emotional. Fear. Many people fear bees because bees sting. But most bee species are non-aggressive. Solitary bees rarely sting unless directly handled. Honeybees sting defensively to protect the hive. A honeybee dies after stinging because its pup stinger tears from its body. This is a sacrifice. Colony defense is prioritized over individual survival. Bumblebees can sting multiple times but are generally docile. Aggression is context dependent. Understanding reduces fear. Bees are not naturally hostile. They are focused on flowers, on nectar, on pollen, on survival. Their sting is a last resort. Now let's zoom out. Bees are often framed as symbols of environmental crisis, but before crisis, we must understand architecture. Because honeybees build hexagonal comb. Hexagons maximize storage while minimizing wax use. Their geometry is mathematically efficient. Wax is multiplically expensive to produce. Hexagonal structure conserves energy. Bumblebees build less uniform comb. Solitary bees build individual chambers. Architecture reflects social structure, and social structure reflects evolutionary strategy. Some species invest in collective survival, others invest in independent reproduction. Both strategies have persisted successfully. Wait tells us something important. There is no single correct way to be a bee. Diversity is strength, and bee diversity underpins ecological diversity. When we say save the bees, we must ask, which bees? Honeybees, wild bees, solitary bees, native bees? Because conservation strategies differ. Urban beekeeping has increased honeybee populations in many cities, but honeybees can compete with wild bees for nectar, pollen matters. Protecting bee diversity means protecting habitat. Native plants, soil nesting areas that could reduce pesticide use, connected green spaces. Understanding bees begins with recognizing their variety. They are not one species, not one behavior, not one story. They are thousands of species, thousands of strategies, thousands of architectures. And together, they help ecosystems quietly, continually, and responsibly. If you approach a beehive in midsummer, the first thing you notice is sound, a low continued hum, not chaotic, not random, layered, alive. That sound is not just noise, it is metabolism, it is coordination, it is thousands of individuals working as one. A honeybee colony is often described as a superorganism because the colony behaves like a single living body. Individual bees are like cells. The hive is the organism, and survival depends not on one bee, but on collective function. Let's begin with structure. At the center of the colony is the queen. She is not a ruler in the human sense. She does not command, she does not make decisions. Her role is singular but essential. She lays eggs, up to 2,000 eggs per day during peak season. Her body is specialized for reproduction. She is larger than worker bees. Her abdomen is elongated. Her pheromones maintain colony cohesion. Without her scent, the hive becomes unstable. Workers begin constructing emergency queen cells. Because a colony without a queen cannot survive long term, but the queen does not control the hive, the workers do. Worker bees are female. They are genetically capable of reproduction, but physiologically suppressed by queen pheromones. Their entire existence is structured by age-based division of labor. This is called temporal polyatheism. A worker's life progresses through roles. In the first days after emerging, she cleans. She prepares brood cells, then she becomes a nurse bee. She fills larvae with raw jelly and bee bread, a fermented mixture of pollen and nectar. Next, she produces wasps. Wasp glands on her abdomen secrete small flakes. She chews and shapes them into comb. Later, she guards the entrance. She inspects returning bees, detects intruders, responds to alarm pheromones. Finally, in the last weeks of her life, she becomes a forager. She leaves the hive, navigates the landscape, collects nectar, pollen, water, and propolis. Propolis is a tree resin used to seal cracks and sterilize surfaces. Egg state reflects physiological changes. Hormone shift, prey structure alters, enzyme production changes. The colony optimizes efficiency through biological timing. Now consider drones. Drones are male bees. Their sole purpose is reproduction. They do not forage. They do not build comb. They do not defend. Their eyes are large, adapted for spotting queens during mating flights. When a virgin queen flies out to mate, drones pursue her mid-air. Only a few succeed, though that do die immediately after mating. Their reproductive organs detect. The queen stores sperm from multiple drones. She may use that sperm for theirs. Drones that fail to may return to the hive. But as winter approaches, when resources decline, workers expel drones. They are pushed out, denied food, left to die, harsh. But evolution prioritizes colony survival over individual comfort. Now let's talk about architecture. Honeycomb is one of the most efficient natural structures known. Hexagons maximize storage space while minimizing wax use. Mathematically, hexagons leave no gaps. Each word supports neighboring cells. The geometry is not taught. it immerses. Bees build circular wax cylinders that soften under hive heat. Severe tension and pressure reshape them into hexagons. Physics assists biology. The comb serves multiple functions: brood rearing, honey storage, pollen storage. Structural integrity, temperature regulation, which brings us to one of the most astonishing features of honeybee colonies: thermoregulation. Honeybee brood must remain around 34 to 35 degrees. Too cold, larvae die. Too hot, development fails. The colony regulates temperature collectively. If the hive overheats, workers fan their wings. They evaporate water to cool the interior. If temperatures drop, bees cluster tightly. They vibrate flight muscles without flying, generating heat. The cluster moves gradually, escort honey stores during winter, consuming food, water, maintaining warmth. The hive survives freezing temperatures not because each bee is strong, but because they coordinate heat production. The colony is a thermal engine. Now let's return to communication. The wako dance is famous, but it is not the only communication system. Bees also use tropholysis, mouth-to-mouth food exchange. It transfers not only nutrients but chemical information. Foragers bring nectar, share. The taste informs others about floral quality. Alarm pheromones signal danger. Queen pheromones suppress worker reproduction. Brood pheromones regulate labor distribution. The hive is a chemical network. Information flows constantly. But here is what makes it extraordinary. No central brain coordinates the colony. No bee oversees the entire system. Each bee responds to local cues: temperature, pheromones, physical contact. Through simple rules, complex organization emerges. There is self-organization. It fascinates scientists. Engineers study bee colonies to design decentralized systems. Algorithms inspired by bees optimize traffic flow and computer network. Swarm intelligence is not metaphorical, it's real. Now let's explore reproduction at the colony level. When a hive becomes crowded, something remarkable happens. Swarming. The old queen leaves the hive with thousands of workers. They cluster temporarily on a plant. While school bees search for a new testing site, schools return and perform waka dances, advertising potential locations. Other schools inspect those sites. Gradually, consensus forms. The colony chooses a new home. No voting system. No leader dictating choice. Decision emerges through repeated signaling and reinforcement. It's a collective democracy. Once consensus reaches threshold, the swarm departs. They fly to the chosen site, begin building anew. Meanwhile, back in the original hive, new queens emerge. They may fight, or one queen may eliminate rivals before they hatch. Evolution is efficient, not sentimental. Now consider vulnerability. A colony depends on food availability, disease resistance, parasite control, environmental stability. One of the most destructive parasites is the varroa mite, a small external parasite that attacks bees. Feeds on fat bodies, weakens immune systems, spreads viruses. Varroa mites have devastated honeybee population worldwide. While bee species face different threats: habitat loss, pesticide exposure, floral resource decline. The hive mind is powerful, but not invincible. That despite threats, bee colonies are resilient. Given adequate habitat and reduced chemical stress, recovery is possible. Urban environments have created unexpected refills, and some cities' rooftop hives thrive due to diverse flowering plants and reduced agricultural pesticide use. But balance is important. High densities of managed honeybees may compete with wild bees. Ecological design requires nuance. Now zoom in again. Inside the hive, dark, warm, humid. Thousands of bodies moving with purpose. Larvae developing in hexagonal cells. Workers transferring nectar. Bees vibrating wings to circulate air. The queen moving methodically escort calm, laying their eggs in prepared cells. There is not chaos. It is architecture in motion. The hive mind is not mystical. It is biological cooperation refined by millions of years of evolution. And it demonstrates something profound. Intelligence does not require large brains. It requires interaction. Be reminded that complexity emerges from connection. One bee alone is fragile. A colony is formidable. The hive mind shows that collective system can achieve temperature control, resource allocation, defense, reproduction, navigation, all coordinated without centralized authority. In human cities, we rely on infrastructure networks, electric grids, water systems, transportation. Bee colonies operate their own biological infrastructure, self-maintained, self-repairing, self-regulating. This is not romanticism, it is observation. And when we protect bees, we are protecting more than honey production. We are protecting a model of biological cooperation that supports ecosystem globally. The hive mind is not just about bees, it's about interdependence, about system thinking, about how thousands of small actions create stability. And in a world increasingly fragmented, the lesson is clear. Survival is collective. Every time you bite into an apple, you are participating in a partnership that began over 100 million years ago. You may not see it, you may not think about it, but somewhere in the chain that brought that apple to your hand, a bee was involved. Pollination is one of the most important biological processes on Earth, and that it is almost invisible. It happens quietly. Flower to flower, grain of pollen to stigma. No sound, no spectacle, but without it, entire ecosystem would collapse. Let's begin with the basics. Pollination is the transfer of pollen from the male part of a flower, the anther, to the female part, the stigma. This transfer allows fertilization. Fertilization produces seeds. Seeds produce fruits. Fruits feed animals, including us. Some plants rely on wind for pollination. Grasses, corn, wheat. But many flowering plants depend on animals. And among animal pollinators, bees are the most efficient. Why? Because bees actively collect pollen. They do not accidentally brush against it. They seek it. Their bodies are designed to trap it. Their behavior is focused on it. Their memory helps them return to the same plant species repeatedly, a behavior called floral constancy. Floral constancy increases pollination efficiency. If a bee visits apple blossoms and then continues visiting upper blossoms, pollen transfer between compatible flowers is maximized. Random visitation would reduce success. Bees are not random. They are systematic. Now consider scale. Approximately 75% of global food crops benefit from animal pollination. Not all depend entirely on it, but yield and quality often improve significantly with pollinators. Almonds, blueberries, apples, cherries, coffee, cocoa, cucumbers, melons, pumpkins, sunflowers. The list is long. Even crops that self-pollinate often produce more robust fruit when bees are present. Globally, pollination services are valued in the hundreds of billions of dollars annually. But bees do not operate on currency. They operate on nectar and pollen. The economy is biological. Energy flows from flowers to bees. From bee to fruit, from fruit to markets, from markets to people. It's an invisible economy. Unlike own economies, it depends on stability. Now imagine removing bees from that system. Food production declines, seed formation decreases, quality drops. Farmers compensate with hand pollination in some regions, but hand pollination is labor intensive and costly. In parts of China where pollinators declined dramatically, workers clumsy with brushes, touching flower to flower manually, is slow, expensive, unsustainable at global scale. Bees perform their service freely, continually, efficiently, but agricultural systems have changed. Modern monoculture strategies has grown thousands of hectares. Allied rows serve a single crop. For a few weeks each year, those fields bloom abundantly, then they become floral deserts. For bees, they create feast and famine cycles. During bloom, nectar is abundant. After bloom, nothing.